So I'm just showing you that I have the book. I have read the book. Because a lot of people do Sunday worship. What day you worship?
What day I worship?
Yeah.
I worship every day.
The people of Solomon and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the city. It says in 2:1, it tells you that the angels went before God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Keep the Sabbath
Keep holy
day
the Sabbath.
holy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a commandment. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwelling. And the 14th day of the first month is the Lord's Passover. Right? We dealing with Bible. Okay. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? So welcome to Ghetto Gospel, where we teach the real Bible here. Okay. So again, this is not the fourth part of my lesson, which is dealing with the apocalypse of Paul. The way Paul explained his out of body experience, into the third heaven, and we know third heaven means paradise. 7 levels of heaven, 3 being paradise. Correct. So we understand that this is not that. It's here. All right, mic check. All right. So this lesson here, a lot of people struggle. So you might hear that the Bible here, this is the King James Bible, right? It possesses 66 books, correct? But however, people call the Apocrypha, which would be, is here, right? It would be the missing books would be in here, and even it's not complete, because the oldest Bible out there that exists is called the Ethiopian Bible, right? The Ethiopian Bible, which had 88 books. So the new Bible today has 66 books. That's what the average person uses. The Catholic Bible has 66 books. So they have some of the Apocrypha. First, Second Maccabees, Tobit, Judith, I believe Esther in there, and Baruch. That's in there. So the Catholic Bible has 66 books. Not 66, 72. I'm sorry, 72 books. The Catholic Bible has 72 books, right? And again, this here is my Catholic certificate that I acquired. It's called God With Us. So, when I was away, I completed this, I guess whatever they want to, it's no different than you go to college and they give you, certain things that you need to get a master or bachelor degree. That's what, when you go to the Sunday church, that's what the average pastor use, and they get it from a theologian college. That's, was give them the, I guess, degree to say that they went through certain answers, and they answered certain questions, and they completed certain courses in order, to be ordained to teach. And it's good, because sometimes if you don't know anything about the word and you want to learn about the word of God, then you want to kind of make sure that at least the person that's teaching you has some form of knowledge, right? So that's fine. But the Catholic, they twist a few words in the Bible, and the way, if you're really seeking for the truth, sometimes you have to try to predate the Bible from as far as possible, until now. When you read the book of Deuteronomy and you also read the book of Revelation, it tells you add nor remove from the Bible. It's a if you add to the Bible, which means add your own words or whatever, tamper with scripture, manuscripts, then the pledge that's in the book will be added to your life, right? And if you remove from the Bible, then your portion of the tree of life will be removed from you, all right? So, if you have a Bible, right? As a matter of fact, give me 1 second. Let me show you something. I should have had this ready, but hold on. And again, this is a lesson on the Sabbath, but it's not my Sabbath lesson. See what I have here? It is a 1611 King James Bible, right? In this Bible, there's 82 books. So when I say 1611, that means this Bible was published in 1611. As I showed you before, this is a newer Bible, which I believe was published in 2005, somewhere. 2000. So this was published in 2019. All right. So they're both Bibles. You see the difference? What's the difference? Don't not how the size, because even if one larger than the other, as you can see, that there's missing books. This was published in 2019. This was published in 1611. It don't take a rocket scientist at all. It don't take a rocket scientist to figure out what they say. Are you doing here on Friday night? You say, what are you doing? I guess they speaking to you, to somebody else. So it don't take a rocket scientist to tell you that something's been removed. All right. If you have a regular Bible, you can order the Apocrypha. You'll have a complete Bible, and I'm gonna tell you why you need the Apocrypha. You can get this for like $20. Let me show you something. So let's go to. Actually, I'm gonna start off. I came with somebody laughed the other day on TikTok, and he was doing some preaching, and I started mentioning other books, and he said that, he brought something up in Galatians to where Paul said, if anybody come to you with a different doctrine other than the one I preach, then it's a false doctrine, But what he didn't realize was Paul was talking to the church of Galatians. Remember, they Greek, and he talking about somebody preaching you the Quran, or something saying that Christ is Buddha, things like that. There's other religious people, probably the Book of Mormon, in other words. If they come to you with that doctrine, then that's a different doctrine. That's what Paul was stating. When you read the book of Acts, which Luke wrote the book of Luke, and he wrote the book of Acts. So when he actually, at the end of the book of Acts, Paul is in jail, right? We understand Paul is in jail, and at each place that he visited, all he did was write them a letter. It started with the Romans. That's the first place he visited. He went to Rome with the Greeks. He wrote them a letter. Then Corinthians. Then the Galatians, Ephesians, Colossians, Philippians, Thessalonians, Hebrews. All them is letters. That's not scripture. They're just letters, and he talking to them because a lot of them kind of lost their way. They kind of went back into the sins that they was committing. And so he just kind of reassuring them, like, I'm in jail, might not ever see you again. Let me just try to, because Paul was used to teach the Greek and Peter was used to teach the Jews. That's dividing in both scriptures that it tells you. Now, I'm going to show you some things why you need the other books. I want to say the book of Esther. Joshua, Judges. Let's go to the book of Esther. Jeremiah, Job. It should have been after. Which it shouldn't be that long. So, if you got your old Bible with the 66 chapters, if you have your Bible, go to the book of Esther, right? And when you go to the book of Esther, Esther should be before the book of Job, right? Okay. So, well, I'm in the book of Esther now. Here, I had the book of Job, right? The book of Job, as you can see right here. So, if I flip one page over, this new Bible, something else. One page over, I will be in the book of Esther. So now I'm in the book of Esther, right? I'm in the book of Esther, right? I want you to go down. I want y'all to do this yourself. You understand? So you won't say that I'm making anything up. Do this yourself. Go to the book of Esther, and what will be the last chapter on Esther? Chapter 10, correct? So it'll be chapter 10 and 3, which I can put my hand right here. Where my hand at? Chapter 10. See it? Chapter 10, verse 3. My hand right here. After that, you can go over to the next page, and you will be in the book of Job. So we understand in the 66 books, right, that Esther has 10 chapters. Now, what you can do, you can go to the Apocrypha, right? And why would you go to the Apocrypha? Because I'm gonna show you what it said. Don't take my word. What do that say in the Apocrypha here? What do it say? The rest of Esther. What you mean the rest of Esther? Oh. So where it stopped at 10 and 3, here it started at 10 and 4. Right? 10 and 4. You understand? And it goes all the way to chapter 16. See it? So you have Esther here. With my hand at chapter 16. So Esther has 16 chapters, not 10 chapters. So you can't even complete the whole book of Esther, because in the original Bible they removed 6 chapters. For what? I don't know. But that's why you go back when the Bible say add nor remove from the book. So you have to go to the Apocrypha to get the rest of Esther. You have to, because you don't even know the complete story what happened. Another thing, reason why you need the Apocrypha, right? So when you dealing with do I have it in here? When you dealing with the Bible and you go to the book of Kings, right? So we know that in the book of Kings, we understand that Saul, who was the first king, anointed, because before then, after Joshua, God brought up judges, right? That's where you get the book of Judges. You know, when you get Deborah, and you know Samson was a judge, and Gideon, you know, where they got the movie 300 from. That's in the book of Judges. But now God was over the people. You know what I mean? There's no Moses, there's no Joshua to lead the people no more. So now he raised up judges. Now we know that the people of Israel, you know, they was being conquered by other colonies, and they cried out. And so now he has Samuel, the prophet Samuel, you know, was kind of going to the Lord, and he was coming back and, you know, giving people insight, and God was saving the people, you know, from all these calamities. So what ended up happening was the people say, we want a king, right? And Samuel told him that, well, God is your king. Trust in the Lord, woo woo. And they said, no, we want a king we can actually see. I know God just saved them from a battle. Just saved them from a battle. He was telling them that we want a king. So Samuel would say, let me talk to the Lord about it. God say, look, don't worry about it. Give them what they want, but tell them that He's going to take their daughters. He's going to take a percentage of their income, some of their vineyards. You know what I mean? He gonna do this. He gonna do that. Whatever. If you want a king, this is what He's going to require. They said it don't matter. We still want a king. So that's where the first king come in the book of Samuel. And God told Samuel to anoint Saul, not Paul that you read in the book of Acts, but Saul. All right. And so Saul came and, he didn't carry out all the duties that the Lord told him. So that's where he said, I'm going to anoint a new king, which was King David, which is the bloodline which Christ came through. Right. Now remember, Saul is a Benjamite, which is, from the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob being his original name, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Jacob name changed to Israel. That's another story. But anyway, they call the sons of Jacob or the 12 tribes of Israel. So we know David was then anointed king from now, right? And then from David, you got his son Solomon, who had the 700 wives and 300 concubines, right? From now, then you have Solomon sinned before the Lord, but God promised that I keep the kingdom within the bloodline of Abraham. So if you're going down that bloodline, Solomon had a servant named Jeroboam. He had a servant named Jeroboam who was a servant. So God said, I'm gonna give the kingdom to your servant, but I'm gonna take one and give it to your son, because he got to stand the bloodline. And we know Solomon's son was named Rehoboam, Rehoboam, right? Rehoboam, right? And Rehoboam had Judea, Jerusalem, and Jeroboam had all of the other tribes. And so what happened is, just going down, make a long story short, as you go down the bloodline from Rehoboam, from Jeroboam, then you brought in Ahab. Now what Ahab did, he started having statues or whatever, sacrificing to Satan, and from the statues, he was actually really sacrificing to Satan himself, Lucifer. Jeroboam is the first one that put up the idols, right? And he made the people, instead of going down to Jerusalem to pray, he made them stay up there where he was and pray to these idols. So that's why when you read the book of Kings, God say, you made Israel sin. Jeroboam, who made Israel sin, because he had these statues, idols that he had the people to pray to. And that, even if you read the book of Daniel, you'll see later on down the line that's kind of what they do. They'll bring a statue or dragon out, and everybody got to worship these dragon and dance. And that's where the three men, when Daniel friends and the three friends, they wouldn't dance to this little statue dragon, whatever that the king had. And that's when they got thrown in the furnace. And he said he threw three men in the furnace and seen four. Christ was in there with them. You know what I mean? That, you're going to miss all that if you don't have the missing books. It's not in the original 66 books of the Bible. I'm just giving you insights on why you need the other books, right? And so from there, then you have Ahab, who actually sacrificed to Satan. And then from there, you had Manasseh. Now what Manasseh did, Manasseh started to actually sacrifice your children. And he started putting them in fire. So, like in the beginning, you'll have to where the people would sacrifice lamb early in the Old Testament, and they'll sacrifice to the Lord lamb and goat, bulls, sin offering, peace offering. What he did, this guy decided to take your real children, your babies, and he decided to sacrifice them in fire. Real children in fire. And that really, really made God mad, right? So with that being said, you have You have let me see, Miss Lala. I don't know who that is. How you doing, Miss Lala? So he started sacrificing your real children to Satan, and that's what made God mad. So it kind of cuts off there as far as the and with Manasseh. But when you read the Apocrypha, right, it's something called the prayer of Manasseh, and you like, what is the prayer of Manasseh? Where Manasseh repented. You know, he repented for the sacrifice that he made dealing, you know, back when he was doing his kingship. He repented. So as far as with doing the repentance, it's called the prayer of Manasseh, and then you also got the letter of Jeremiah. You know, a lot of them are missing, and they very important because it kind of give you like an end to all as far as how their journey went. So that's why I say you need some of them missing books. Now, so when we dealing the original Bible, and I'm not talking about the King James, but the original Bible with the 88 books, it also possessed the book of Enoch, and it possessed the book of Jubilees, right? Now, Enoch, which is part of the original scripture, they used, you know, in the time of Christ, they was quoting from the book of Enoch, and this is kind of what, you know, I want to bring forth to this lesson, stating that Peter was quoting from the book of Enoch, and also Jubilees. You know, Jubilees is very important because this is still part of the book of Genesis. You know, this here tells you who Cain married. When the book of Genesis said Cain left, and he took his wife, and they had a son that named him Cain, and named the city after him, the city of Nod, the city of Cain. It'll tell you about that when you read the book of Jubilees. So yeah, Jubilees is kind of clearing up some things that Genesis won't clean up, you know, because a lot of people say, well, if it was only Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, then Seth came, where did he get a wife? So that's where you get people saying Adamites. You know, there's no Adamites. You know, when you say Adamites, the ITE means descendant. So if, in other words, when you say Israelite, Israel is Jacob. The ITE is his descendants. So people think it's a religion, but it's not a religion. It's actually a people. So that's what the ITE stands for. So when you deal with, in other words, Edomite, Edomite is Esau. Edom is Esau. When you read the book of Genesis, he say, and because he ate the red pottage, his name became Edom. So we know Esau's name is Edom, and then the Edomites, the ITE, is his children and his whole bloodline. The same with the Canaanites. When you read about the Canaanites, who is Canaan? Canaan is the son of Ham. So when you deal with the Canaanites, the ITE, you know, Ham had a son. You know, he had Cush, the Cushites, Canaan, the Canaanites. You know, the ITE only stands for the descendants. That's it. You're going to go to the book of Numbers, I believe 26 and 1, and it'll show you about the Moabites. Who are the Moabites? The Moabites will be the children of Lot. When Lot left Sodom and Gomorrah, when God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot wife turned to a pillar of stone, which they say she's still there today, the daughter thought that was the end of the world. So they got Lot drunk, and they had children bound. So they both got Lot drunk, and they both had babies bound. And that was Moab and Ammon. So when you see the Ammonites and the Moabites, they're just the descendants of Lot. That's it. The ITE, Moabites, Ammonites, Israelites, Edomites, Canaanites. That's all the ITE stands for. You understand? So, you know, hopefully I can, you know, y'all got some insights on that. Sons of Jacob, sons of... Okay. So, now, I'm just... And again, I have other Enochs. So, in this Enoch, you have Enoch 1, Enoch 2, and Enoch 3. Stay away from Enoch 3. All right? Not a lot of truth in there. It's pretty much a lot of fabrication. That's why I say when you start reading these other books, you first need to know the Bible, right? So Enoch 2 is pretty good. It got some things in there. Talk about an eighth day. Enoch 2 is pretty good, but you know, Enoch 1 is what was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? So a lot of people say, what is the Dead Sea Scrolls? The Dead Sea Scroll is manuscripts that they couldn't tamper with because they didn't have them. So like you can get a Bible right now, and you can go to the book of Acts when Christ was talking to Paul, and they said that you know they said that Christ. Let me show you. Actually, where's my other Bible at? Look for this. I got so many Bibles around here. What is Bible at? So when you go to the book of Acts, I'm just gonna show you why I make a difference and that the Bibles have been changed. So you go to the book of Acts and you go to chapter, I want to say 26. Let's see, here for Agrippa. Is it 26? 23. So we know that Paul got a letter, right? And what he's doing, Christ came to him and said, why is you, prosecuting my people, because remember, again, as the elder said earlier, that we know that during that time, Paul, let me get this correct scriptures. Paul speaks before Felix. Would that be 20? I'm burning before the Lord. Back to John. This book of Acts. So we know that when Paul was going to Damascus, right? We know he's going to Damascus. And so this must be all the way down here. So it should be 13 to 26. All right. Yeah. So yeah, we know that Paul was on his way to Damascus, right? I want to give you the correct scripture, but used to be one of mine. Okay, so this here, we got here, and remember that would be after he killed Stephen or whatever. So we know Paul is on his way to Damascus, and during that time on his way to Damascus, we know that I know the whole story. We know that Christ came to Paul and say, Paul, why do you forsake me? And he be like, who is you? And he be like, I'm Christ, the one that you blasphemy, in other words. Because Paul, he's a Pharisee. He thought he was doing the work of the Lord, keeping the law of Moses. Remember, there wasn't nobody really buying, the Christ theory back then, So a lot of people, it was considered blasphemy if you were saying, Christ, was the Son of God, because they knew of Moses. They think the miracles Moses did, and every Moses' name was famous in the whole land. So now it's coming like you come with a new doctrine, and so we know how that went. But it says that Paul, the light came from the sky, and in some Bibles you're gonna say, and he heard a voice. Some are gonna say Hebrew, some are gonna say Aramatic, and it can't be Armenian. Reason being, because if it was Armenian, it would be more, Paul would have been Muslim. Remember, Paul, he tell you himself that he's from the tribe of Benjamin. So if Paul from the tribe of Benjamin, then why would he be speaking Armenian? You would have to be from the tribes of Ishmael. When you say Ishmaelites, you know that Abraham's first son name was Ishmael, so the ITE is Ishmaelite. All the ITE is your children. That's all. So if even when you talk to Paul, he said he's a Benjamite, or a Judite, or a Gadite. The ITE is just your children, So if you see somebody saying Israelite, don't think that's a religion. It's not. It's a people. So in other words, but he said that I heard a voice speaking to, in some Bibles it say, and I heard a voice from the sky speaking in Hebrew. We know Paul would have spoke Hebrew, and Paul spoke other language, but Christ spoke to him in Hebrew, and we know Hebrew is the original language, which they tell you in the book of Jubilees. When God told the angels to give Abraham the language that was deceased from the Tower of Babel. We know the Tower of Babel is when they went to go build these towers up to heaven to fight against God, led by Nimrod, right? And we know that God confused the language. And so all these people had different language. They can never understand each other, which ceased the Tower of Babel. And he took the Hebrew language away from there. So there's no more Hebrew out throughout the land. And so during the time of Abraham, when Abraham came, God said, give him the original language, which is Hebrew, right? You will read about that in the book of Jubilees, all right? But that's all I'm saying is that's the reason you really need, certain Bibles. I would say the King James is a good Bible to get. 1611 with all the books. Get it in English because some King James versions, they don't have certain letters in there. They don't have the letter J. They don't have the letter U, and you'll get confused. You'll be reading like, what is this? Like they might say something like have is H, H-H-A-U-E or something like you won't understand the language. So if you're going to get a 1611, try to get one in English. If you get the original, then it's going to be off. Let me move forward. Been on half an hour. Let's get it. So again, Enoch, Jubilees. Get these books. Very, very, very important. They are part of the original scripture. Now, to support that, it's a Bible dictionary, right? You go into the Bible dictionary. You just type in you can just go to what you want. And let's go to books. And I believe I'm looking for the Dead Sea Scroll. You can actually type in the Dead Sea Scroll, which is right here. Dead Sea Scrolls. You see it right here. Dead Sea Scrolls. And here they show you a picture. This is actual Dead Sea Scrolls underwater. All right. They're showing you, and they say here, these photos is from courtesy of NASA, NASA. So NASA went there, and they showing you, this is the cave. That's the cave underwater. Underwater, it would be the Dead Sea Scrolls. All right. So we know that that haven't been tampered with, and they showing you here in the Dead Sea Scrolls right here. That would be the manuscript. That's the scrolls. They have to piece it together and figure out what go where. But it tells you in the Dead Sea Scroll, it say the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered between 1947 and 1960, right? In a cave on the western Dead Sea shore near a ruin called Qumran. 11 caves from the Qumran, not the Quran, but it's called Qumran, Qumran area have since yielded manuscripts. That's why, again, the Bible is called the Holy Scriptures. It's not called the Bible. Christ referred to it as the Holy Scriptures or the Law and the Prophets. That's what the Bible originally called. The Bible is just a whole bunch of authors put together in one book, and people named it based on instructions before leaving Earth. But that's just some new talk that somebody made up. The Bible is never mentioned. If you read the Bible, you will never see the word Bible in there. Nowhere in the Bible. What you will see, if you have an original Bible, the Holy Scriptures or the Law and the Prophets. The Law, which Abraham gave from God, and then the prophets who prophesied about Christ. Law and the Prophets. That's what the Bible is originally called. Let's keep moving. Okay, and it says, these manuscripts costly and areas that has yielded manuscripts mostly in small fragments. About 60% of the scrolls has so far been published. These are composed or copied between 200 BC and 70 AD, which is the fall of Jerusalem, 70 AD, right? Mostly around the lifetime of Christ. Again, mostly around the lifetime of Christ, right? That's the Dead Sea Scrolls was hidden around that time. I'm sorry, not hidden, but it was existence during that time frame, right? And it's said by a small community living in Qumran. Context they have comprised three mainly kinds of literature. In other words, the Dead Sea Scroll is dealing with three kinds of literature. What is them three kinds of literature, right? And if you want to type that in, Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever on the internet, but again, I'm coming out of a Bible dictionary, all right, which only deal with the Bible scriptures, nothing else. It's not dealing with Michael Jordan or P. Diddy. It's only dealing with biblical scriptures. So if you want to type in Moses, Adam, John, it'll be in here. You can't type up Michael Jackson. It's not going to be in here. It's only for the Bible. So now, it's a context. They comprise three main kinds of literature. Copies of the Old Testament, right? The Old Testament, not the New, but the Old. So it's a copies of the Old Testament. And I'm thinking it up to the book of 2 Chronicles, because when I look through my other books, I have a Tisdale Bible, which was published in 1530. So that's even before my 1611 Bible. I have one that was published in 1530, and it only goes up to 2 Chronicles. Then I have a book called the Holy Scriptures, which I told you that's the name of the Bible, and that goes up into 2 Chronicles. So that's what I would believe the Dead Sea Scroll Old Testament possesses, right? Now, it said, give me 1 second. Okay, so the Old Testament, the oldest we now possess. So in other words, the Old Testament that they have is the oldest that is out there. And during them old manuscripts, you go to the book of Exodus, right? And it's very important, because you be like, well, what's so good about that? Well, that's the only place in the Bible where God gave his name. That's the only place in the Bible where Moses asked, what is your name? And God say his name, right? That's why it's very, very important, because now you got, well, his name is Yahweh. His name is Jehovah. His name is Allah. His name is Yahweh. You got all these different names. And God told Moses, this is my name forever. Satan had many names, God had one. Right? Now, we know that it possesses the Old Testament books, the oldest we now possesses, right? Some non-biblical Jewish books known from elsewhere issues such as 1 Enoch, found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Dead Sea Scrolls published around 200 BC and 70 AD, right? During the time of Christ. Here was found. So I'm reading again. It's some non-biblical Jewish books known from elsewhere, such as 1 Enoch, books unknown for Ezra, and Jubilees. These was, and I have an Ethiopian Bible on its way, original Ethiopian Bible that I found online, and again, it has them two books in there. Now, so we know that the Dead Sea Scroll got what? The Old Testament, right? Enoch and the Book of Jubilees. Let me continue. Now, it also says that the community owns composition including biblical such as Huckabut and Nahum, and we know them prophets. When you right before you get to the new the gospel, Huckabut and Nahum, we know they was small prophets, minor prophets, which I believe is 12 minor prophets, and you have 4 major prophets: Isaiah, Daniel, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. Let me see. All right, let me get through. Which interpret prophecy as I'm trying to get it. It say the essence, the Qumran community belong to the essence. One of the major Jewish religious movement described by the first century AD historian Josephus. Like, who is Josephus? And that's why I say, people want to just really get on here and teach, but the Bible is bigger than Nino Brown. Josephus, the historian Josephus. Who is Josephus? Josephus is more of a fact checker. If you want to see is your Nike's real, you can do like a fact checker. Josephus was a historian, and back in the days, what happened is when things used to happen, then you would have something called a recorder. He'd sit on his horse, and while they're going to battle, you can see that in the book of, in the movie Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman. Everything that was going on, they had like a publisher, somebody that writes everything. Oh wow, he killed 40 men. The king was killed right here, and usually the recorder, they didn't, it was kind of, when nobody maybe deal, he won't have no trouble. It's no different than the news going reporting some news. Yeah, I'm here in Iraq, and it's sort of in that, so that's always been the case. So he was there around the time during the Book of Kings. It's a lot of things that people refer to Josephus, number one historian, Josephus. So you want to read Josephus. He speak on, I believe, something about Noah, ox, when the flood came. Og, which is a Nephilim, hid onto the boat and hid in the cave until the water seceded. I believe it's in the book of Josephus. It's a lot of knowledge. I supposed to have been read this book here, couldn't get to it, but I'm very familiar with it. So I'm definitely, that's why I'm sitting here on my table, because I gotta get to it. Josephus. Now, right now we went through that. So now we understand that the book of Jubilees and the book of Enoch is part of the original Bible or scriptures. We understand Enoch is part of that. Now, what I want to get to, let's get to this here. Let's get to the Bible, right? So let's go to the Bible, and let's go to 2 Peter 2 and 4. 2 Peter 2 and 4. Like, well, what I'm going there for, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you why you're going there. So, where we at? 2 Peter 2 and 4. I'm here now. So 2 Peter 2 and 4. It say, for if God spared not the angels that sinned. What angels? The angels that came from heaven, came down to earth, and had sex with women and born giants. So the angels that came from their habitation, which is heaven, is called the watchers. When you look in the sky and you see the stars, when you used to see back in the day the watchmen, you're talking about the stars. So when you see the stars, them angels, all right? All the stars are angels, which they tell you about in the book of Enoch, right? So he said, if God spared not the angels that sin, but cast them down to hell, right? And delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved until judgment. This is Peter. Peter saying that the angels that came from heaven was put in darkness. I want y'all to stay with me. He was put in darkness, right? And he was put in chains, because he ain't just say that they was sin. He's going in specific details. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved until judgment. Where's Peter getting that from? Well, check it out. Let's go. Because if you have a Bible, it should be there, right? Let's go to the book of Genesis 6 and 4. Let's talk about the giants. So if you go to Genesis 6 and 4, right? It say, let's start at 6 and 1. It's called man wickedness, right? Okay. And it came to pass when the man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters was born unto them. So now there's a lot of people on earth. They females looking good, the men out here. The earth is populated, right? That the sons of God saw that the daughters of men that they were fair. Now these sons of God, we all children of the Lord, but the sons of God is referring to the angels that's in heaven, right? Because that's when you're dealing with this, it say that the sons of God, the sons, it's giving you a narrative. It say that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men. So we talking about two different people. Sons of God saw that the daughters of men. So we talking about two different entities, right? That they was fair. In other words, they look good, they beautiful. Oh man, shorty banging, right? It tells you that they took them wives of all that they chose. In other words, they took themselves wives. It didn't matter if you was married or not. I'm assuming they just took of whoever they chose. The Bible says of whoever they chose. They ain't consult with nobody because remember, they more powerful than man. When you read the book of Hebrews, it say that man was made just a little bit under the angels. And I know I showed y'all in one of my videos, I have the book of angels. There's rankings coming from seraphim on down to man. There's a ranking orders. Angels are the lords of the low in the heaven, and right under angels was man. We understand that when Adam was created, Adam was born immortal. He was just a little bit under the angels. They say Adam can look in the sky and he can see things that's happening in the heavens, right? And he never was to die. The dominion was given, the world was given to Adam to judge the fallen. And we're not talking about the angels that came down to sleep with the women, but there was two sets of angels that fell. Lucifer. When you read the book of Adam and Eve, when you read the book of Revelation, Lucifer is a war in heaven, and Lucifer and his angels fought against Michael and his angels, and Michael prevailed, and they was kicked out of heaven. When you read the book of Isaiah, and he say, "Oh Satan, how art thou fall from heaven?" All right, so all that kind of goes together. But that's the first set of angels that fell, Lucifer, and he took a third of the heaven with him, a third. And they was here on earth before mankind, right? So now, Adam was created, and he was given the earth. And until he sinned, once he sinned, then he was subjected to sin. Then Satan had dominion of the earth, because before Adam sinned, Adam was a child of God. Okay, before he sinned, Adam was a child of God. And he was given dominion of the earth. What you'll give your children, your if you have something that you own, you leave it to them as an inheritance, right? So God gave the earth to Adam, everything. Remember, he named the animals, he named Eve, everything Adam named, right? And once he sinned, that was taken away from him. Then it was because now, once you sin, you're no longer under me. You're a sinner. Satan sinned and he got kicked out of heaven. So Adam sinned, being on earth, the earth was snatched from him. Now you under Satan, because you have to repent. And they tell you in the book of Adam and Eve, once Adam ate off the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that his eyes started getting dim. Remember, Adam, if you can see in the heaven, Adam can see just good as an eagle. His hearing was super. He was a superhuman, never to die. That he started getting aches, pain. Now we don't get them because we was born in sin. So we already born, and we born. The minute we born, we're dying. The minute you come out your mama womb, you're starting to die. You have a time frame from here to here, right? But not Adam. So Adam never felt pain. You know what I'm saying? He didn't know what it felt like to be cold. You know what I mean? Remember, they walked around naked. It tells you when you read the book of Jubilees, they was in a garden for 7 years before, was it Jubilees? I believe Jubilees, or it could be in the book of Adam and Eve. But they walked around for 7 years naked, right? And they didn't have knowledge of, to cover themselves, right? But they didn't get cold. You know what I mean? They had no knowledge of sexual activities, right? Let me move forward. The point I was making was that Adam was also immortal, to live forever, until and God say, once you eat off the tree of knowledge of good and evil, then you surely will die. And so some people ask me, well, why would God put the tree there, right? Why would God put the tree there? God didn't put the tree there. You read about that in 3rd Baruch. God did not plant the tree there. That's why I say, when God, in the beginning, it say, and God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning was the first day. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning was the second day. Everything was good, right? Everything was good. This before mankind. Remember, Adam was made on the 6th day. Man was the last creation that God made, right? So, based on that, we understand that the animal was here. We know that the herds was here on earth, for the healing of the body, which is tell you about in Revelation 22 and 2. You know what I mean? We know man was the last thing, and the earth was given to Adam. And at this point, women is not here, and we know how that went. God took a womb out of a man, and he made Eve, and it used to be called womb of a man, and then it was that's what it's supposed to be, womb of a man, which results to woman, WOMAN, but it's supposed to be womb of a man. Probably never heard that, but I'm just throwing a little knowledge to you. But yeah, that's the original woman of man. Now this. I'm just gonna throw you, some knowledge. Originally, when Eve was born, when she was made, Eve's hair came down to her ankles, and her hair was used to cover her body. That's what the original hair for. Women hair used to cover her body, right? And so when you see a lot of these women from India and these Chinese and a lot of these Caucasian women, the daughter of Zion is cursed. That's why black women don't have a lot of hair like the average Gentile, or Japanese or India. You notice their hair goes all the way down. There used to be Eve hair, but there's a curse. There's a curse on the woman of Zion. You be like, what do you mean a curse? Well, when you read the book of Isaiah, God said that I was going to strike the scalp of the woman of Zion. Let me just get that for you. And from there, I'm going to wrap this up. See, I be going everywhere, and this not even part of my lesson, but it kind of, that's why I say it kind of going there. So, I just want to, because some women might wonder, like, man, why I don't have any hair? Well, let me show you why you don't have any hair. It's actually in scriptures, If you go to the book of Isaiah chapter 3 verse 16, God tells you why women don't have hair, why you have to buy weave, He say, moreover, the Lord said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with they stretched forth neck, and walking eyelashes, walking, stuck up. He said because of that, proud, as you see the women are today, right? He say, walking with mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore, the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret part. Again. Therefore, chapter 17, Isaiah 3 and 17. Therefore, the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. You will have no hair. That's why you don't have any hair. All right? It's in scriptures. That's why you need weaves. And that's the prophet Isaiah has spoken. All right. Let me get back to this scriptures here. Sorry about that. I just wanted to, throw that in so y'all will know why y'all don't have any hair. All right. But but hey, the woman of Zion, they still beautiful. You know what I mean? It's still beautiful. Hair or no hair. I like natural. All right. Okay, so let's go back to this. Okay, I'm sorry. I went back to. So we go. So we back in Genesis chapter 6. Let me get through this. Let me get through this. And it came to pass when the men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and a daughter was born unto them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, that they was fair, and that they took wives, of which they all chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Then after that, it said, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and creepy things and the fowls of the sky, for it repented me that I have made them. Right? But then it go down and say, nor find grace with God. Right? So now, I just read, that's the only place as far as dealing with the man, the angels coming from heaven down to earth to have sex with the women. Well, now, I read that for a reason. Let's go back to Peter 2:4. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved until judgment. Where do it say that in the book of Genesis? It do not say that. I just read it. It don't say that. Let's go to Jude. Let's go to Jude 1 and 6. Jude should be right before Revelations. All right. So let's go to Jude 6, right? Jude 6 said, and the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he had reserved in everlasting chains under the darkness until the judgment of the great day. This is Jude. So now we got Peter saying that there's going to be darkness and chains, and we got Jude. Where's you getting that from? Genesis 6 and 4 don't say that. There were giants in the earth in those days, and after that, when sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children, of which they became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. That's all. It tells you, if you go back up to, and that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they took wives of whom they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always arrive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days will be 120 years. So let me explain the 120 years, right? He say, man, when you read the book of Jubilees, right? The book of Jubilees, God tell you that a man should live to be 70 years old. And if he a healthy man, 80. And we know today people live to be 90, 100 years old. But he's saying the average person, by the time you reach 70 years old, you might be in your wooden casket. And some people can make it to be 80, depending on how you take care of your body or whatever, things in that order. But this is what God pretty much telling you in the book of Jubilees. 70 years old, you pretty much dead. By 80, you really, really near. And if you live past that, then you have a fruitful life. You got blessings in your life. We know in the book of Kings, Ezekiel was supposed to die. We understand that. And so the prophet came to Ezekiel say, prepare to die. God say it's about your time. Because remember, he was in the bed and I believe he's sick. And so he say, man, he told God, hey, I did everything you asked me. I've been faithful. I carried out your commandments. I fast. I did everything that I was supposed to do. You know what I mean? So God told the prophet to double back on Ezekiel and say, I'm adding 10 years to your life. I'm adding 10 years. So Ezekiel got another 10 years added to his life. All right? It's in the book of Kings. Read it. Don't take my word. It's in the book of Kings. Read it. Understand? So You know, I'm not saying that he adding it to the people life today, but I'm just saying God can't add and remove. Let me see. Great job. Don't forget to take it back. Okay, cool. All right. So the 120 years. I'm gonna explain that he's not talking about 120 Earth years, because during the time that's in the book of Genesis, right? And that would be 6 and 4. We know that Adam lived to be how old? Adam lived to be 930 years old, right? So we know it's not 120, right? We know Abraham lived to be 175 years old. We know that Methuselah lived to be 969 years old, the oldest that ever lived on earth. We know that Jared lived to be, which is Enoch, did he? Lived to be, how long Jared? 961 years old. We know Noah lived to be 950 years old. Shem 600 years old. I'm just speaking in general. We know this, right? And so we understand that when he made that comment, he wasn't talking about 120 Earth years. What he was talking about was 120 jubilees. And so you saying, what is a jubilee? Go back to the Bible dictionary. Now I know what it is, but I'm going to read it to you. A jubilee is 49 or 50 years. So this is when you're dealing with, and again, you don't know how much time, but he give you a time frame of how long creation will last. He tells you that in the book of Genesis. You know, again, the Bible is deeper than what a lot of people think. A lot of people want to teach, get up here and get 10, 15 people in their room, and they want to lead, but you don't know how to, you know, a lot of people don't. And that's why I say, you know, I try to work and teach certain people, but certain people have pride. You have to do the work, you know, and if you're going to teach this, you got to teach it the right way. Jubilees. J-U-B, where we at? Should have been here. J-U, should have been here. Well, a jubilee is, what my other Bible dictionary? Jubilee is 49 or 50 years. Let me check this real quick. My other dictionary. There, where we at? Where we at? Come here. The Christ. Yeah. A B C D E F G H E F G H I J J. I kind of like this Bible here. Give you, it's a little bit different. J-U, this Judas, right here. All right, here it said, well, Jubilees. So, tells you right here, Jubilees. All right, so I'm gonna tell you what a Jubilee is. A Jubilee, Hebrew. All right, according to Leviticus, every 50 year in Israel was to be announced as a Jubilee year. All right. 3 extensions feature characterized this year. First, liberty was proclaimed to all Israel who was in bondage to any of their countrymen. The law provided that the price of slaves was to be varied according to the proximity of the Jubilee year. Second, there was to be a return of ancestral possession to those who have been compelled to sell them because of poverty. Okay, in other words, if you sold something to somebody because you needed some money, in 50 years you have to return it. This, of course, included the possibility of selling a piece of land permanently. This law applies to lands and houses outside of the walled city, and also to the houses owned by the Levites, whether in a walled city or not. As in the case of the price of slaves, the law made provision that the price of real property was to vary according to the proximity of the Jubilee year. The third feature of this year was that it was to be a year of rest for the land. The land was to remain fallow, even though it has been so in the previous sabbatical field and produce in the 6th year. And was whoever grew spontaneous, it is impossible to say whether the Jewish people ever really observed the Jubilee year. So, again, and then you have the Book of Jubilees next. Let me just read on that for a second real quick. A Jewish apocryphal book written in the intertestamental period. It gives a history of the world from the creation of the law and defends Pharisees' views against liberty. Okay, so again, Hebrew, every 50 years, and it tells you that about that in the book of Leviticus. Every 50 years. So, anybody know what a Jubilee is? Every 50 years. Give me 1 second. I just want to see something. I need about 15 seconds. 15 seconds. Down to 10. A, B, C, E, F, G. Hopefully y'all learning something. F, G, H, I, J. Okay. Now, okay, so I'm just looking for something. It ain't here. Okay, so now we have a Jubilee, right? So God tell him, he say that I should not always dwell with flesh, but he said my spirit should always dwell with flesh, because we know man is made of flesh and the angels are made of spirit, right? He said, but that they should be, I'm going to repeat it. He said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Yet his days. What do you mean, yet his days? What he telling you is, yet his days should be 120 years. He means that after 120 years, you know what I'm saying, we set for judgment. So what you do, 120 years times 50 equals how much? 6,000 years. Now it tells you something about that when you read Second Enoch. That's what I'm saying. All this stuff kind of makes sense. So when you read Second Enoch, it tells you, remember God built the earth in 6 days, and according to Peter, 1,000 years is 1 day to God. So 6 days, right? Again, it all have to add up. 1,000 years is 1 day to God, right? We understand that. So Peter tell you that 1,000 years is 1 day. So when you read Second Enoch, it tells you, what I'm saying, that in 6,000 years it took God to build. It's not 6 days. It's 6,000 years it took God to build the earth, according. And in 6,000 years, it will be destroyed. All right. 6 plus 6 is 12. Right. I told you about when I did this. That this lesson I'm working on is called the mysteries of God. God got certain numbers he deal with. 3. Christ died and rose in 3 days. Okay. When Gideon, it was 3. When you read the book of Judges, and then you go to the book of Samuel and Kings, you see 30,000 men, 300 men, 3,000 nets. Why is it always 3? 30,000, 300. Christ died and rose in 3 days. 3. That's just one of his numbers, right? When Christ went to, when you go to Matthew, and Christ went to the mountain, and he seen who? See, it was he took who he took with him? 3 people. He took Peter. He took Peter, John. What's his brother's name? He took Peter, John. Who was the other dude? See, even I get a little thrown off. It's not part of my lesson, but it's called. It should have been. I can go to Mark 9:1. I know where the scripture at. So the transfiguration. And he said unto them, verily I say unto you, that there be of them that stands there, which shall not be taste of death, till they have seen the kingdom of God come with power. And after 6 days, right, Jesus take it with him, Peter, James, and John. 3 people. Peter, James, and John, right? And we know it was Moses was there, and who appeared with Moses, and that appeared unto him, Elijah with Moses, and there they was talking with Christ. So that's 3, right? Now, when you go to the book of Revelations, right, Christ had 2 witnesses. Who was the 2 witnesses? Moses and Elijah. A lot of people don't know that. So when you go to the book of Revelation, and it's saying there Christ had 2 witnesses, the 2 witnesses in the book of Revelations will be Elijah and Moses. They're the 2 witnesses that Christ had, right? So again, number 3 is one of the numbers that is one of God's mysterious numbers. The other number will be 7. I don't have to tell y'all that. Everybody know 7 having, 7 days in a week, 52 weeks is a year. So 52, 5 plus 2 equals 7. We know, everybody knows 7, the lucky number 7. Boom. The number 10, as God do 10%, a tithe, 90% of the earth will die off, according to the book of Isaiah. And out the 10% that's left on earth, when you read the book of Zechariah, that 10% of the people after Armageddon came went to the wilderness, right? And of that, 7% died off. This in the book of Zechariah. 7% died off and left you 3. You understand? 7 plus 3, 10. It's crazy, but like I say, once I tell you this, you'll start seeing this more as you read the Bible. You're like, wow. Like, how you buy a car and you never seen this car nowhere, but now that you got it, you see it everywhere. Like, damn, until I get this car, I see this car everywhere. You'll never notice it until you get that car, right? Let's see. Look like my Western ain't going down. Okay. Let me try to finish. Okay. So we know according to the Bible, only 3% of the earth will make it to heaven. So when you got all these people talking about we all gonna make it to heaven, just do this and do that, that's not true. You know what I mean? It's a 3%. Let me see. Live will end at 4:59. We had tapped it. Doing your lab complete. The verification of the continue. Okay, let me see something. All right, here we go. All right, so again, so we on that. Also, what up? So you got the number 3, you got the number 7, we got the number 10, we got the number 12. 12 months in a year. 12 disciples, the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, 12 is one of God's numbers, right? 6 days, 6 days to make the earth, 6 days to destroy the earth. 6 plus 6 is 12, whatever. And again, it's God deal with numbers, and every number means something. Then you also have the number 40. You know what I'm saying? It rained 40 days and 40 nights. Moses stayed in the wilderness 40 years, and he died after 40 years. Christ was led into the wilderness, and he was tempted by Satan 40 days and 40 nights. All this is in the Bible. You know what I mean? When you read the book of Adam and Eve, Adam is the first one to fast. He fasted for 40 days. And the reason why he say 40 is the time, according to the Bible, 40 will be the time of suffering. After 40 you suffer. There's the period of suffocation, suffering. So that's 40. Now, so when he said that my spirit should always strive with man, but it should be 120 years. I just told you the 120 years is 150 jubilees, right? So 50 times 120 is 6,000. You understand? 6,000. Again, a lot of y'all not gonna be there with me, but I'm bringing it across your, your dome, so you might, hear later in life, and you be like, oh, you know what? I heard somebody speak on this before. I 100% understand it. A lot of y'all not gonna understand it, but that's what the 120 years mean. I just explained to you that he couldn't be talking about 100 earth years, because we know many people lived to be over 120 years back in them days. So he's not talking about 120 years. He's talking about 120 jubilees. 120 times 50. One jubilee is 50 years, which I just read in the Bible dictionary. So 120 times 50. Boom. Hopefully you got it. Did I cover everything? Let me see. Oh, sorry. So now, what I'm doing is I just read 2 Peter 2 and 4. I also read the book of Jude, 6, verse 6. And it tells you that God spared not the angels, but what he did was he put them in darkness and put chains on there and reserved under judgment. Then I read Genesis 6 and 4, 6 and 1 through 6 and 4 on to 6 and 5. It tells you nothing about the punishment that the angels received. It just say that there was angels in back in them days, that there was giants and they was men of renown. That's it. It was giants back in them days. So why would Peter and why would Jude, where would they get that from? You will have to get it from the book of Enoch. When you go to the book of Enoch, go to chapter 10, verse 4, and it will read. Missing books of the Bible. All right, missing books of the Bible. And of course, Enoch is one of them books. The Apocrypha, Enoch, the book of Jubilees. They tell you the missing books of the Bible. Enoch, Jubilees, the Apocrypha, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Philip. I need to do some more research on the Gospel of Philip, Gospel of Mary. I haven't read it, but they say it's part of the original scripture. I'm going to just read it and see do it even adds up with the Bible, right? I'm going to get on that in a minute. So these are the missing books here, which everybody really kind of need. Because with the missing books, you go to the book of Second Esdras, it tells you what happened after you die. It explains to you after you die everything that's going to take place. But they took them out so you want to know, what I mean? Get the missing books, what I mean? It's for you. All right, so now what we're dealing with is a couple of things here. All right, so we in Enoch, right? Chapter 10, right? And again, the Lord said to Raphael, which is one of the 7 archangels, when they tell you in the book of Tobit that when you pray, I take your prayers before the Lord. So a lot of y'all pray and y'all feel that y'all praying to God. You're not. You're praying and the angels take your prayers before the Lord to see what they be granted. So you're not talking directly to God. You can't talk to the President of the United States. You can't even talk sometimes to the principal at your school or the dean. You have to get an appointment. You can't go talk to the chief of police. You got to talk to somebody at the front desk. And how you think you're talking directly to God? No, you ain't that special like that. The angels take your prayer before God, and I'm going to read that for you in a second. But he tell you, he say, and his seed. I'm sorry about that. And again, the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel, hand and foot, and cast him into darkness, and make an opening in the desert which is in Judea, and cast him therein, and place upon him and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may see no light, and on the day of the great judgment he should be cast into the fire. This is Enoch. So Peter and Jude was reading from Enoch. How would you know? How would you go in details of he being cast in darkness until the great day of judgment in chains? It tells you specifically. They're telling you in the book of Peter and the book of Jude exactly from Enoch. So if Peter reading Enoch, if Jude reading Enoch, Christ read Enoch because Christ, Christ spoke some things concerning Enoch. So they read Enoch. But you're not reading Enoch, because you say it's not scriptures. It ain't. No, it's scriptures. You just don't know the scriptures. I'm going to repeat that again. I'm going to say it real quick because I'm about to wrap this up. Bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into darkness and make an opening in the desert which is in Judea, and cast him therein, and place upon him rugged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may see no light, and on the great day of judgment he should be cast into the lake of fire. That's in Enoch. That's in Enoch. So again, that will be in the book of Enoch. So Peter and Jude, and who is Jude? Jude and James is Christ's half brother, right? James and Jude is Christ's half brother, right? So, if Jude quoting from the book of Enoch, then of course, he had to learn from Christ. Christ must have been in the book of Enoch also. You know what I'm saying? So far, what have we went over today? I want to make sure I got everything covered. So number one, we started with the book of Esther. When you read the book of Esther in the Bible with 66 books, Esther cut off at chapter 10 and 3. You go to the Apocrypha, again, get you an Apocrypha, go to the Apocrypha, and it tells you the rest of Esther. Esther has 16 chapters, not 10. All right. Then we went and we dealt with, I went through a couple of things, because a lot of things wasn't part of the lesson, but I just threw that in there. I know we talked about, I'm just dealing with the missing book. We talked about the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Which mentioned the book of Josephus. I showed you that I have the book of Josephus, right? It tells you when you read the Bible dictionary that the Dead Sea Scroll, which haven't been tampered with, it's been underwater for all these years, and it's from 200 BC through 70 AD, the fall of Jerusalem, right? And they found it in 1940 somewhere, and in these findings, they found the Old Testament, which I believe go to 2nd Chronicles. They found in there the book of Jubilees and the book of Enoch, which is the missing books. The missing books, the Apocrypha, the book of Enoch, and the book of Jubilees, right? So, we went through that saying that's part of the original scriptures, right? Also, what did we do? We read from the Bible in Genesis 6 and 4 about the angels that fell from came from heaven, and they end up what they end up doing. They had sex with the women and they born giants, and they just left off from there. Then we went to the book of Peter, 2 Peter 2 and 4, and book of Jude 6, and they kind of quoted from the book of Enoch, which the Bible didn't mention. That's why I had to read both of them to show you that the Bible don't mention this, but they mention specifically the punishment that they will receive. Where they get their information from, if it's not in the Bible, but it's in Enoch, they will have to get it from Enoch. So it tells you that the book of Enoch and the book of Jubilees is part of the original scripture that was removed. Some of the books that was removed. I don't know. So you might have to just rewind this lesson. I go with a lot. I say a lot of things I can't remember. My next lesson is going to be part 4 of the Prophets of Paul. This here, when you read the book of Enoch and the book of Revelation, that's pretty scary. But this here, by far, is a little more scarier. This here tell you about Tartarus. Tartarus is, he's Lord over hell. When you die, you will be seeing Tartarus. It's something called the spirit of retribution. The spirit of retribution is it gets you to sin every day. Like right now, it gets your soul to sin, and when you die, it's there waiting for your soul to be released from the body. And then you have a good angel, and it says you have a demon here, and it kind of take you to your habitation. Even when you read the book of Luke 16 to 19, it tells you that the rich man went to Hades and Lazarus went to the bosom of Abraham. When you die, you don't go directly to heaven. You don't go directly to hell. You go to a holding spot where I just read in Enoch, bound him in the desert. So where he was bound at will be somewhere where Lazarus would be bound, you know what I mean, until the day of great judgment. So even when you read the book of Luke chapter 16 to 19, and they say that the rich man died and the beggar died, it tells you that the beggar and Lazarus went to two different places. So it's telling you that they're not going straight to heaven or hell to be judged. It say ban him there until the great day of judgment. And you say, well, why didn't God just destroy us? See, God can't destroy you like that because you come from God. But he can't place you on the place. He can't destroy you because The spirit cannot die. Once you, the spirit is, as I told you earlier, it is immortal. The spirit is immortal. It can't be destroyed, but he can place you somewhere to where you bound and you can't be released. He can't do that forever. So that's like it'll be torture. I haven't explained to you that when you die, you need food and water. I'll do another lesson on that, and kind of explain to you that your spirit needs food and water once you die. That's part of the torment, right? I'll do that. So another thing, right? I explained to you about the ITE. Anytime you see ITE, that means it's a descendant. Descendant of who? Of whoever that person is. And if you want to start from Cain, which I had a debate with a guy who say Adamites. The Adamites been here before Cain. I'm sorry, before Adam. I'm like, how can the Adamites be here before Adam? He say, well, who did Cain marry? The Bible say that Cain married and he took his wife and they had children. You know what I'm saying? So that's where Adamite come from. Well, what do the ITE stands for? The ITE stands for descendant. So back in them days, if you had a child, you know what I'm saying, you would name your child after you. You understand? So I have a junior. My son is a junior of my name. You understand? So why would I name my child a junior of somebody else? Back in them days, just look at the Trump Tower. It's after Trump. The Harold Washington Library. The Martin Luther King Street. Them's named after them people. Back in them days, a lot of the kings, like after they built the Tower of Babel, what they did, a lot of them kings, after God confounded their language because they trying to build a tower from Nimrod to the heaven to fight against God. So what he ended up there, he confused the language. Now a lot of them people, that's where you're getting all these different languages from, all these different religions. You know what I mean? The angel came down to split their tongue in 70. That's the word again, 70. When Jacob left and went down to Egypt, you know what I'm saying, during the famine, they said that he took 70 people went down there with him because Joseph was already down there. I'm just saying, I'm going to do these numbers. That's going to be like maybe a 5-part lesson because that's going to be very deep, each one of them. I'm just going to go through some of the numbers to understand that 3, 7, 10, 12, and 40 is part of God's numbers, and it all means something in the end. You know what I mean? Just to pay attention, right? But yeah, I definitely do that. So I also went through the ITE, stands from reason there's no Adamites is because if there was any other people, then it would have been an Adamite, because we understand that Ham got the Hamites, we got Shem got the Shemites, we got Canaan, which is the son of Ham, the Canaanites, which the Bible speaks of. We have Cushites, which is Ham's son also. We have Israelites, which is Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, Israelites. So we had the Israelites, right? We had the Edomites, right? Who is the Edomites? It's Esau. You know what, since I'm in the book of Genesis already, let me just try to go into that real quick. Man, I love teaching, but let me get in here. So Canaan curse. All right, that's Canaan. So when you want to go in the book of Genesis, you'll go into the book of Genesis, and it should be 26. Alright. Isaac descendants, Esau set his birthright. Okay, so when you go to the book of Genesis, you can go to chapter 25 and 29. Actually, let's do this. The birth of Esau and Jacob. Okay, so that'll be chapter 25 and 24. And when her days to be delivered was fulfilled, behold, there was 2 twins in her womb. And the first one came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. They had to describe Esau because Esau, he didn't look like everybody else. Esau was red and everybody else was black. So that's what and after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years when he had bare them. What is 80? Anybody know what 80 is? A score means 20. So Isaac was 60 years old. Anytime you see score, That if they say four scores, that's 80. If they say three scores, that's 60. You know. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter and a man of the field. Now, when they say a cunning hunter and a man of the field, during this time, Nimrod was still born. Now, Nimrod is known for killing all the giants. The giants that came down was made by the daughters of men. When I read the book of Genesis, they was running around and they was eating people and they was destroying. And Nimrod, he got a whole bunch of men to start hunting them down. So Nimrod became a mighty warrior. You know, he was kind of like king on earth. You know, he the one got the people to build the Tower of Babel, right? Esau kept Nimrod. So Esau very dangerous, very, very dangerous dude. He kept Nimrod. Now, it tells you here, he said he was a man of the field. And that's why, you know, when you see a lot of the Edomites, you know, Gentiles or whatever, Gentiles is anybody that's not Israel. So to be a Gentile don't mean you have to be a white, you know what I mean? But the Edomite will mean that you will be considered white. But Gentile means you're just not Israel. So you can be India, you know what I'm saying, or African. You can be a Gentile because you're not of the seed of Abraham. Let me just put that out there, right? All right, it's a, where we at? Let me at. I'm trying to hurry this up. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, you know, what they do, they hunt the field, right? And a man of the field. And Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tent. In other words, Jacob was a mama's boy. All right, let's just keep it real. He was a mama's boy. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of the venison, and Rebekah loved Jacob. Again, Jacob was a mama's boy, and Esau was a man's man. Esau liked to go in the field. He liked to kill animals. You know, if you're a daddy and you got your son, you want your son to be a mighty man. Like, oh man, you build houses, man, you work on cars. That's how a man want to see his son. Not in here laying on your mama and your mama paying your phone bill and, you know, rub it. No, man want to see. So that's why I say Jacob loved Esau and Rebekah loved Jacob, mama's boy. That's fine. Even you see that even to today, right? Now, what it tells you, it said, listen here. And Jacob sowed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. Now, he come from the field because what he did, he just kept Nimrod, which they'll tell you about in the book of Jasher. He just kept Nimrod, and them boys on his back. So he thinking he finna die. They on his back. It's no different if you got a manhunt today. If you shoot a police officer and your face is planted on the news, you know they at your door. So this is what Esau going through at the time. So he at the door, right? And they say he just left the field and he was faint. I'm just giving you the detail because y'all haven't read the other books. He just kept Nimrod. So then he just come in and he thinking he finna die. They on his back, right? And now, and Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, that the same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. Edom. So now we got the book of Genesis 25 and where we at? 29 and 30. 29 and 30 is changing Esau's name to Edom. Edomites. Edomites is the descendants of Esau. Who is Edom? Edom is Esau again. And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. And Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die. What profit should I do of my birthrights? Do me. What would it do for me? I'm trying to be dead. And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. That's why Jacob's name was changed to Israel, because a lot of, he had a bad name going out there. Esau told everybody, yeah, man, this dude stole my birthright. He stole my blessing. He ain't no good. Jacob had kind of a bad name on him. So God changed his name to Israel. When you read the I believe, chapter 35, God speaks to Jacob. Yep. I believe I thought it was 37. Should be. Anyway, I'm just giving it to you, Judah. So that ain't it. Jacob died. Okay. Well, I'm just giving it to you. But I'm gonna say God speaks to Jacob, right? And but it tells you that his name was changed to Israel. Should have been in 35 though. I don't know what. Anyway, though, oh yeah, here it is right here. So his name was changed to Israel. That will be chapter 32 and 28. So again, we know Esau's name was changed to Edom. So when you see Edom, that's Esau. Edomites, the descendants of Esau. Now from Jacob to Israel, and he said, "Well, let's go up, son. Let's go to 26." And he said, "Let me go for the day breaking." And he said, "I will not let thee go, except thou bless me." And he said unto him, "What is thy name?" And he said, "Jacob." Right? Now this was after Jacob wrestled with an angel. Right? He wrestled with an angel. It tells you that Jacob wrestled with an angel. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And then he saw that he prevailed not against him, and he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob thigh was out of joint as he wrestled. So the angel just touched his thigh and removed his whole bone. That's how, very powerful. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaketh." And he said, "I will not let thee go, except thou bless me." And he said unto him, "What is thy name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince has thou power with God, with men, and has prevailed." And Jacob asked him and said, "Tell me, I pray thee, thy name." And he said, "Therefore it is that thou dost ask me thy name." And bless him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Right? And then it tells you from there, anyway. So we know that Jacob's name has been changed to Israel, and that will be chapter Genesis 32 and 28. So when you say Israel, the Israelites are Jacob's children. All right, just trying to give y'all some insights. About to wrap up though. I think I want to cover everything now. Some more things here. You asked me why. See, here is a piece of paper. And then here, what is this here? This is the Bible. This is the, I believe, this is not the whole Bible, but I wrote the whole Bible. This is just some of my notes that I wrote. So right here, when I was away, I had nothing to do. So I wrote it with pencil, small pencil, the whole thing. This is the last page here. Wrote it. See? This is the first page. Wrote it. See? This is another. I'm missing a green book also, a green or purple. I still have it. Wrote it. Let's go to the end of it. Wrote it. All right? Through the whole thing. So I know a lot about the Bible because not only I read it 2 or 3 times, but I wrote it. I wrote the Bible. So that's why I'm kind of, I try to tell people and teach, certain things. And, I know exactly when, if a person asks me something, I can go straight to a scripture because I had nothing but time. I just want to make sure that I covered everything before I let you all go. But them some of the reasons that, let me cover this before I go. Let's get back to the Bible. And again, we're dealing with missing books, right? So let me get back to the Bible. So now, when you read the book of Joshua, right? Joshua, when you read the book of Joshua, and I can get this out, the Bible dictionary. So when you read the book of Joshua, it tells you that the sun stood still, right? And when it tells you that the sun stood still, it tells you, isn't this written in the book of Joshua, right? Then when you go to 1 Samuel, I believe 1:18, it tells you the use of a bow. Isn't this found in the book of Joshua? So when you say that, you be like, in so many words, it's telling you that you can go to these other books. The Bible refer the book of Jasher. The Bible refer the book of Jasher, and it's like a book of upright. Jasher is not a man. All right, it's not. It's a book of records. You know what I mean? So if you want to go check some things like Josephus, when people go to the book of Josephus, we know that it's a fact check. It's considered checking artifacts or events that happen, and so he's very proven. Josephus is very proven. So the Bible referred the book of Jasher, twice, not once but twice in the Bible. So you can go to the book of Jasher and actually, get more information because the Bible okayed you to go in them books. When you read the book of Kings and it tells you that to read more about this particular king, you can go to the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel, and it's more about this story. And then it tells you another one. You can go to the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah and find more about this story. So what the Bible doing, the Bible's giving you the okay to go in these other books. So again, that's another book that you can actually go into. You got Enoch, you got Jubilees, you got Jasher, you got the book of the Kings of the Chronicles of Israel, you got the book of the Kings of the Chronicles of Judah. That's 5 books right there that the Bible, gives you the okay to actually go in there. All right. So when a person tells you to stay away from other books, I just showed you why you can't go on other books. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna land my plane here. If you have any questions, because I'm going to end. If you have any questions, please hit it in the comments, and I'll answer all questions therein. Until then, y'all be good.